I think Joel Embiid should have won the MVP for this past season, and I would have even given the award, if not to Embiid, I would have given it to Giannis. And if I had an MVP vote here, I would have gone Embiid 1, Giannis 2, Jokic 3. No disrespect to what the Joker has done, and I hate how now this narrative is going to basically be trying to bash Nikola Jokic and try to knock down all his accomplishments this season. He's had a tremendous season. He has had one of the best seasons of any player in the NBA this year. He is absolutely by far willing and deserving to be in the top 3 of MVP voting. And he is, again, single-handedly carried the Nuggets into the playoffs. And without him, the Nuggets would be a lottery team this year by far. But the reality is, I think the same case you can make for Nikola Jokic, you can make for Joel Embiid. The narrative surrounding Jokic this year, and I think the biggest reason why he won the award was because of what? Nikola Jokic still had success despite the fact that his 2 best players around him were out for basically the entirety of the season. Jamal Murray missed the entire year with a torn ACL, and Michael Porter Jr. played like 5 games. I think it was 7 to be exact. So basically, your 2 best players next to you were out the entirety of the season, and still you look at what Jokic was able to do. He was able to lift the Nuggets to 48 wins this season. They were 6th in the West, and again, made the playoffs. But the thing is, though, for all the narrative about how Jokic had success with no one around him, you could say the same thing for Embiid. Like Embiid, for 75% of this season, had just as little help around him as Jokic did. So why are we praising Jokic, but also not giving Embiid the same amount of credit? Because Embiid, with very similar resources around him, had a better year than Jokic. Embiid led the NBA in scoring this year, 30.6 points per game compared to Jokic's 27. The Sixers had a better record than the Nuggets, 51 wins compared to 48. And there was not a lot around Embiid this season. The second best player in the Sixers, Ben Simmons, missed the entirety of the season. Entirety of the year. Say what you want about Ben Simmons' work ethic and his motivation and how he fits into the Sixers. Talent-wise, he is the second best player on Philly's roster this season, and he barely broke a sweat. He played like 5 minutes in one of the first practices, and that was it. He wasn't even seen again. So Embiid was playing by himself, needed help, was having a tremendous year, while the second best player in the Sixers was off training in some gym, running 5-on-5 with guys like you and me. And I know they traded for Harden later on in the year. I get they brought some help, but you look at how James Harden played. James Harden wasn't, this massively impactful player. He was pass first. He still deferred to Embiid and had Embiid run the offense. Like, Harden was along for the ride. Let's just call it for what it is. Harden was along for the ride in Brooklyn with Kyrie and KD, and he brought that same attitude, kind of that same play style to Philly. Whereas still Embiid's team, the offense still ran through the process himself on offense. And all Harden would do, sure, here and there, he'd have some decent and efficient scoring games, but it was just get Embiid the ball. He was pass first. He was setting up Embiid on offense, and the offense was flowing through him. So you basically got a glorified point guard. Someone who was pass first, looking to set everyone else up, and it was still Embiid doing most of the heavy lifting on offense. Like, Harden came in, didn't have one game this season where he shot the ball more than 20 times in a game. We know James Harden loves to shoot the ball. We saw it in Houston. He was very ball dominant. His usage rate was through the roof, and he had to have the ball in his hands. He deferred to Embiid and basically was saying, hey, big fella, it's your team. You carry us. I'm going to be along for the ride. So why are we now giving Nikola Jokic all this praise for playing as well as he did this season, for getting the Nuggets to 48 wins and getting them into the postseason as a top 6 seed while having nothing around him, but also not saying the same thing for Embiid? Embiid did not have much around him at all this season. Tyrese Maxey's a great young player. He's still developing, though. He still has a ways to go to be that consistent either number 2 or even a 1A to Embiid's 1. Like, Maxey's a lot of talent, and he absolutely could develop into one of the most consistent and deadly players and best scorers in this game. But he still has a long way to go. He's not there yet. Danny Green's inconsistent. Tobias Harris hasn't really, out to the last 3 or 4 weeks, has not really played well at all. For 75% of this season, it was Embiid doing all the dirty work, lifting this team offensively and defensively